Hi, everybody. This is episode 46 of our podcast, Artificial Intelligence and
45.
Surgery. 45? Okay, I'm in denial.
Yeah, 45 then.
We're at episode 45. Okay, great. I'm Dr. Andrew Gums, editor-in-chief of the journal Artificial Intelligence Surgery, and I'll let my co-host, Dr. Vincent Grasso, introduce our next guest.
It's a great pleasure. Thank you, Andrew. We have the pleasure of having on our podcast early Eastern time Saturday morning, Steve Bell, although he's in the afternoon because I think you're in Rome right now, Steve, right? So it's we're excited to have you on, and if you can give our audience a little background about yourself. I understand that you've got quite an extensive business background in healthcare and startups and entrepreneurialism, which is very interesting to our audience. We're trying to encourage our physician friends to become more business-like and entrepreneurial. So welcome to our podcast, and if you can introduce yourself to the audience, that would be very helpful. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for having me on. So I've been in the medical device business for, sadly now 33 years. So started my time back in the day before ethic and endosurgery existed as Ethicon, mutated into ethic and endosurgery, did the whole laparoscopic change from open to laparoscopic, ran through that. Then did several startups within J&J, including a cardiovascular called Cardiovations. Did Gynicare, was at Gynicare for a long time. Then I left them to go and do some what I call real startups out in California. So I used to commute between Rome and Irvine and did several startups there. Managed to successfully crash a few into the ground, which is always a good learning as a startup entrepreneur. And then we actually were successful on a few. We sold one off to, I think it was Thoratech, took all the assets of that one. And then there was another one to a bank. And then I sort of semi-retired. Then I was asked to go into a special project for biologics in orthopedics for RTI. Did that for a while. And then Martin Frost, one of the greatest people I've ever met in this industry, convinced me to come and take on the fight of surgical robotics. And I reluctantly, because I thought Intuitive should, just own that space. That's what I thought at the time. Saw their arm, realized it was different. And then I helped them for the first 3 years when they were in stealth, 2014-17, then 2017, tried to find them a chief commercial officer unsuccessfully. So they asked me to do it, promised to be there just a year or so. 6 years later, I was still doing it, but we managed to become the number 2 surgical robotic soft tissue robotic company in the world by then. Now I've sort of left them after 6 years because I only do startups for a short time, and 6 years was too long. And now what I'm actually doing is I'm helping the industry to learn how to do startups. So I've done an entire set of courses on helping physicians to learn how to do startups. In fact, it's called How to Start Up in Medtech.com. And it's really focused on trying to find the entrepreneurs and educate them on what the reality of a startup is. That's about it.
Yeah, it's quite a bit. Steven Song, obviously. He worked with me with Talos Surgical, and this, I probably shouldn't say this online, but I'm not very good with keeping my cards close to my chest. This is kind of like a stealth interview, if you will, because Steven has wanted to have you come. We're going to try to convince you one of these days to come help us out with Talos Surgical, but that's another topic. So I think it's good for the viewers to know, how well regarded you are and how well respected that,
thank you.
Anybody in their right mind would love to have you help them, with a startup. So you are now in Rome. I just going to mention here, I'm now in Italy. I'm north of Milan. I'm over on the mountains overlooking Lecco, and I'm actually just going to show everybody there. That's
Lago di Lecco
over there. So this is not a fake background. It's a real background, which is rare, which is why I'm enjoying it. But Steve, you're in Rome now. Can you explain us a little bit about your move?
I've actually been
Rome?
I've been here for nearly 25 years. I moved with J&J back in the day because Gynicare, with a phenomenal lady called Laura Angelini, who was a great mentor to me, was based in Rome. And I had the choice to continue sort of commuting to Hamburg or move to Rome. And it wasn't a long thinking process to decide to come to Rome. So I've been here
Well,
since
I've
then.
never been to Hamburg, but I hear it's absolutely beautiful. I'm
It
looking
is.
forward to
It's
going. Yeah, just the
it's
weather
lovely, but
not as sunny.
it's not Rome.
Yeah.
It's not Rome. It's lovely, but it's not Rome.
So you were able to work with CMR from Rome this whole time.
Yeah. So I used to commute to sort of do the shuttle to Cambridge, often on a Monday morning, and go back on a Friday night and stay there. But I was in charge of commercial worldwide, and for the first couple of years, that was a lot of office based. Clearly, as we were building out the organization and getting things rolling, and I was in charge of the sales and the marketing. So I was building up, helping with the strategic product portfolio and the marketing of it. With some really phenomenal people there. The marketing guy, Patrick Portage, just phenomenal. I was very lucky. And I used to commute across there and stay there in the week and then fly back sort of on the weekends. And then after that, when we got to commercial, basically I was out on the road. We were flying everywhere to see, customers, clients set up. We set up 20 something companies around the world in that time.
Wow.
So yeah.
Now, is there a direct flight from Rome to Cambridge? Or did you go to London?
Yes, yeah, no,
Oh, wow.
no, there is. So just south of Cambridge, there's Stansted Airport, which is considered a London airport, but it's actually closer to Cambridge. And I would just go from there's two airports in Rome, one called Fiumicino that everyone sort of knows, the big international. There's a small ex-military airport called Ciampino, and that does the Ryanair shuttle.
Of course.
So I used to just Ryanair shuttle every Monday morning and come back on a Friday night on Ryanair, direct flights, 2.5 hours, pretty easy.
Oh, fantastic. Now, where are you from originally?
So originally from Liverpool. I was actually born just outside of Liverpool, and I lived in a terrible place, which was like a Liverpool overspill gangland place that was just in the late 70s and early 80s, which was just like terrible place. It's actually featured on a few British television programs called there was something like 2 pints of lager and a packet of crisps. It was a TV show, and it's just a terrible place. But I still have relatives there, but I rarely go back.
Well, I'm actually interested. From Liverpool, you resisted going to Hamburg. I guess you didn't want to follow in your compatriots' footsteps, the Beatles.
No, absolutely not. So yeah, I used to shuttle back to Hamburg, and I did actually I've been to the Cavern Club in Liverpool, and I did go to the other club where they used to play in Hamburg as well, which has changed now. But I have actually followed them there a bit. Yeah.
So can you give some of our viewers some kind of common mistakes or some general pearls of wisdom you can for startups, for surgeons in particular, because viewers we're thinking they're pretty much surgeons. So there's always the cliche that surgeons, doctors, and generals are terrible businessmen, and we're trying to change that with our journal. But I'm sure you have a thing or two to say to doctors in particular.
Yeah, there is. And again, my course is generally for everybody, but there are particular things within that course that I do talk about to the surgeons in particular and the clinicians in particular. And one of the things that I try and help them to understand, well, there's a few things, but one of them is just because you can do surgery doesn't mean you can do a medtech business. Okay, they're two very different things, and it would almost like be if I suddenly became arrogant and said, well, I can do a medtech startup, so therefore, give me a scalpel, right? They're not interchangeable in that way.
100%. Yeah.
But what is really good from the clinicians is that the clinicians have amazing insight into the problems that they have on a daily basis, because all great ideas must come from a foundational problem that you're trying to solve. It can't be, I invent something and then try and find a problem. And I think surgeons are very good at doing it that way around, which is finding a really big problem they have and trying to find a solution. Whereas engineers tend to come quite often from the engineering background, and then they try and then fit that engineering solution into the best problem it fixes.
Right.
And yeah, so that's the number one. The problem though with clinicians is they often come with what they want, not what they need, which are two extremely different things. And that's part on the industry that we're generally very bad at asking them. We go and say, well, what is it you want? And they'll tell you, I've got this problem in surgery, so I want a more bendy retractor. Okay. Yeah. The question has to be not what do you want, it's what do you need? What problem do you need to solve? And then let the engineers who are great at that work out the best way to solve it. Because the answer might be, you don't want a retractor at all. An engineer will work that out better. And that interplay, where what you really don't want is surgeons trying to be engineers. Some of them are very good at it, but they shouldn't try and be the engineer. They must take the role of the needs provider. This is the major problem that I have on a daily basis. And I need somebody to help me figure that out and fix it. And can you give me some options, please? And then as a clinician, I can tell you in the reality of the world, which of those options might actually be the thing that will be the thing that I'll want. Which of those options do I want? Not what do I want from the problem? If that makes sense. Does that make kind of sense?
Absolutely. Vincent and I have had people on here, engineers, and they have a solution, which we say, and you've said, and I'll repeat, basically, is they have a solution looking for a problem. And, we've noticed that quite a bit. I mean, Vincent, we can go off on a soliloquy on that. We always advocate, of course, for clinicians to work with engineers as soon as possible.
Yes.
But that's one of the reasons we started the journal. One of the reasons I started Talos is because we had all these surgeons with great ideas, maybe even patents, and just no idea how to develop them, who to even talk to. And it's, it's so, it's heartbreaking in many ways. These guys have been tinkering on their own on the weekends, coming up with this great idea, and they don't know who to tell it, who to share it with.
Well, I can absolutely help them on that. And again, bit of a plug for my own course, but the course is 100 videos. It takes you from the A to Z, from having the idea, how do you have the right idea? Because one of the things is having an idea, right? But if it serves 10 patients and it's only a couple of hospitals in Florida, that's not a business. Yeah. And what I really try and express to people is the idea and the R&D is less than 20% of a medtech startup. 80% is commercialization.
Right.
And people really miss that because it's called a medtech business for a reason. And at the end of the day, you're going to need to raise minimum $20-30 million. That's the minimum bar to get in nowadays. So two things. Number one, have a big idea. It has to be something that's really impactful. That doesn't lessen that smaller ideas are not good. But if you want to make a big business and you want to attract investment, you're going to have to be able to sell $100 million of this in any 1 year by about year 10. If you can't do that, it's not a business that's investable. Of course, you can get what they call bootstrapping, which is putting money together, or you can get some angels to do it. But you'll never get to a big idea, a big company with a small idea. The second thing as well on ideas is just because it's a big idea doesn't mean it's a good business. You have to really, before you send the engineers off, you have to make them really understand what's the 5-year goal of this and who's going to pay for it, how they're going to pay for it, how much are they going to pay for it. And the reason that I say that is I see there's a lot of mistakes that are made where a surgeon will say, can you make me this? And you don't put constraints on the engineers. And then the engineers will go off and make something amazing that will cost $1,000 to make, and the hospital can pay $600 for it.
Right.
I'm exaggerating, it's a bit of a bigger exaggeration, but generally I often see where good ideas, big revenues, but no profit.
Right.
And at the end of the day, your business it's not a charity. It's a profit-making business if you want to attract investment.
What is your background? I mean, did you get, is it called an MBA in England? I'm not even sure what it's called. Are you an engineer or?
No, so it's a bit of a strange background. So I've actually got 2 degrees. I've got one in physiology and one in pharmacology. And then I went into Ethicon and started doing the mechanical staplers back in the day and got very involved with the R&D teams. My dad was actually a very senior engineer in a brewing company. My dad taught me engineering from when I was about 5 years old. I used to work with lathes and stuff in the garage when I was about 7 years old. I used to build stuff, electronics, mechatronics, computers, literally build garages and stuff. So I got no official engineering background, but I have a very good background of understanding how stuff works from electronics, from light. My dad was a really good engineer in that way. So I put that together with my physiology. And then the main thing is I just spent so much of my life in the operating room. And for anyone making surgical devices, I can't stress enough to the engineers, I don't want to hear your idea if you've not been in the operating room. If you've not been in there and spent 3-4 months watching understanding, absorbing, really understanding, okay, that's the problem that I'm dealing with here. I think you can't fix it. Theoretical fixing of stuff, I think, in surgery is really bad because someone's got to pay for this, right? It's got to fit into a very complex system. When you look at a healthcare system that things have got to fit into from an economic or from just a workflow, all those complexities, no product stands on its own. And the kind of final piece that I'll throw on that is that I try and encourage engineers, stop thinking in products. Surgeons don't think in products, they think in procedures and patients. And your product is one piece of a very complex dance and jigsaw that happens in that surgical process or outside the surgical process or data or whichever piece of the healthcare system you look at. So you mustn't think in products. You must think, okay, how does my cog fit into the wheel? Then you end up with good products. Then you end up with good businesses. Then you end up with things that people can actually buy and use on a daily basis.
So we don't have much time left. As you know, this is a podcast focused on artificial intelligence. So I'm going to let Vincent ask you your opinions on how AI is gonna change the how we do business or surgery in general. But before I turn it over to Vincent, I wanted to hear a little bit more about your course. You mentioned it's 100 videos. Can you tell us how long those videos are? And if it's okay with you, can you tell us how much the course is and how to sign up and things like that?
Yeah. So if you go to howtostartupinmedtech.com, I tried to keep it as simple as what it is. It's 100 videos, and each video is between 5 and 7 minutes. And I designed them in a way that you can actually listen to them almost like a podcast in the car. It's just me talking on them. And then all the worksheets are a separate thing that you can download next to it, because I didn't want people driving and trying to see what I'm showing on the screen. So I built it that way. You can just listen to it. It's €799. So it's quite cheap relative to what it is. It'll take you about 2 months to go through it. If you're a clinician doing it in your evening time, it'll take you about 2 months. And it will literally take you from how to have the idea all the way to how to exit. But I think that the main thing is I've made tons of mistakes in 30 years and I've seen tons of mistakes. 50% of the course is just about the big mistakes that everybody makes, avoid them, because they're the same mistakes that get repeated and repeated and repeated. And then the other half of the course is saying these are the things that you can do to have a higher chance of success. The course is really built that way.
Great. It looks like I'm going to have to find 800 euros.
Yeah.
Vincent, so how do you think AI is going to change? I know it's a pretty broad question, but how do you think Steve can help some of our viewers navigate and think differently now that AI is becoming more of a reality in the operating room and with robotics and everything?
Oh, this is so exciting, and thanks, Steve. I think our audience is going to be so happy to utilize the insights in your videos. As you mentioned, there's a considerable amount of money that has to be spent to take something from an idea to an exit, and I think there's a lot of, and see what you think. Physicians have ideas, surgeons have ideas, and it may be a great idea. But to get a device into someone's hands with the engineers takes time and money. Being able to simulate a lot of that stuff in software and do some very advanced simulation with some machine learning, perhaps, and computer vision before you actually go out and start building prototypes, perhaps, could not only decrease that cost, but eliminate some of the unexpected roadblocks or got you moments. So again, working with engineers and data scientists could be very helpful. And in my opinion, at that early stage, does that make any sense? In your deep experience?
Yeah, no, it does. So I think one of the capabilities that engineers have today, which we didn't have back 20-something years ago, is what I would call digital twins. So you've got a digital twin. And what you're able to do is you're basically able to make a digital version of your product in a fairly realistic environment. So let me give a couple of simple examples, and then I'll talk about some of the slightly more complex. So if I want to have, let's say I want to make a new stapler, okay? I just want to make a new stapler. And I want to know how nurses are going to interact with it. So you can go to someone like Fundamental VR, okay? And they can make you a digital twin, and they can build up your product. And what you can do is you can make, say, 3 or 4 different versions of that in software, which is way faster than making 3 or 4 actual mechanical versions and getting all the prototypes spun up and stuff. And you just want to see things like, how they put a reload cartridge in. And you could make 3 or 4 digital twins and very rapidly have them go into a VR environment and interact with it. And you can sit as observed in that VR environment and watch them with that digital twin interacting with the product. And the engineers can sit in there and say, really weird, you picked that up from that end. Why did you pick it from that end? Oh, because, when we're in the operating room and it's on the Mayo tray, that's the way we'd line it up. Little things like this is a very fast way to get through. And we couldn't do that 20 years ago. You'd have to build the bloody thing and then bring people in and actually sit them in the operating room to do it and then reiterate. So that's faster, cheaper, and I think it will give you more insights. There's one way that you can do it. The second thing that you can do is, and it's companies like, I know Medicoroy did this. They did millions of simulations of their arms on their robot for Hinatori before they ever put it near a patient, because they were trying to understand the interaction and dynamics between all the joints and the joint sets. And they were trying to understand, how much clash will we get? And if we put the ports here and we put the ports there. Now, you could go and run, millions of cadaver labs if you want. That's one way you could do it. It's going to be very expensive and it's going to take you, the next 30 years. Or what you can do, again, is use machine learning. You can use AI, you can use digital twins, and you can set that all off algorithmically to start looking at that and say, okay, tell us, should this joint be longer? And then you can put it through every permutation that can ever be around that patient and say, look, when we get it at that length, it seems to work better. And then you can do the same with all the angles. And again, what I'm seeing is that people who are doing this are generally coming out with products with less real world problems the day they go into their first sort of initial cases. They tend to have, not every bug, but they tend to have got a majority of the bugs out of the way in a digital environment or having some kind of AI or machine learning, helping them to really assess that early on, do really rapid reiterations of the product, go through the digital twin again, reiterate, go through, and then what comes out the other end, there's no such thing as a perfect product, but it comes out at least with the majority of the problems, the gotchas, have been gotchas in software land, not in the operating room.
Vincent, it's funny. This is episode 45, and we wanted to get a special guest for episode 50. And I'm just thinking throughout this whole podcast, man, you would have been perfect for episode 50. At least we got a good number, 45 for you. But you would have been great here.
No, thank you. I enjoy talking about it. So it's exciting, and it's an exciting time in medtech for clinicians, for surgeons, for engineers, for people in the data sciences. It's just really exciting.
So just on a selfish level, do you think an interesting young startup could still entice you out of semi-retirement or whatever you're calling your state right now?
Yeah, they can for 2 reasons. One is my wife at some point is going to kick me out of the house. So I know she is, because she hates me being around so much. So there will be that sort of pressure that will hit me suddenly from one side. But the second thing is I'm a geek, right? And if I see something that's like geekish, I just can't help myself. It's stronger than me. And especially if it's something that's going to be really cool and really contribute to benefit in healthcare, it's stronger than me. So if there is something out there that's, cool and enticing, and, get Stephen to give me a call. And I
will, but I'm going to take a few more minutes of you. What are your thoughts on smaller robotics? I'm going to ask you 2 questions. What are your thoughts on smaller robotics? And what are your thoughts on non-console complete robotic systems? Da Vinci without the surgeon at the console, but actually in contact with the patient.
Yeah, so there's various pros and cons to that. So let me talk about the size first. So there definitely is a need to get smaller. So there are several mini robots out there in the general surgery space. You've got Vicarious Surgical, you've got Virtual Incision. If you actually look at the ultimate at the minute, one of the ultimate robots that are out there is the endovascular one, which is Microbot, which is with Harel and the team. And it's not only small, it's disposable. It's a disposable robot, completely disposable robot, right? So the technology, without a doubt, is able to do this. You're able to do this. I think if you look at something like Moon Surgical, where they're trying to do advanced assisted laparoscopy. Less, I wouldn't call it true robotics in the sense that everyone thinks of a Da Vinci. But with Moon Surgical, there's no console. There is just a bedside unit, and basically it's hand manipulation of the arms. The interim step, and I know that there were several companies out there in the past, like Verb, were looking at this, which was how do you have sterile controllers so that the surgeon is actually stood over the table, and then distal motion kind of went one further with that and actually had the sterile console so that you work, you do your laparoscopic portion, you then turn around, you dock in the robot, you do your robotic portion, you stay sterile, you go back. And there is definitely right place, right robot, right procedure, right surgeon, where there is a slice of, think about ASCs, rapid turnover, low number of ancillary staff. You could get the workflow better on a lower acuity procedure if you stay scrubbed in at the table, because you've got to put the ports in first anyway, right? So you don't waste that time de-scrubbing, going to the console, doing that. Then you've got to put a piece of mesh through. Okay, well, I'm going to need to scrub in again. I'm going to put, there's just, if you find the right procedure, the right workflow situation, and at table control mechanism, however you want to do that, either be it vocally, be it hand assisted, be it controls that are sterile, be it, there's 100 ways you can do it. There's definitely something in there about having small form factor, no scrub out robots that is going to be interesting in a slice of the market where a Da Vinci or similar mainframe would be considered overkill. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry,
You're muted.
sorry. I have my friend who's here at his house and the dog, so I put us
It's
on
okay.
mute. But I was just saying, so good. It sounds like there's hope for Talos. So I will.
Yeah.
We'll have. I'm going to talk to Steve tomorrow. I'll have him reach out to you. So
Okay.
so Vincent, we're at the end of our podcast. I'll let you close us out. Okay.
Sure. So thanks. Episode 45 of our AI and Cybersurgery Journal podcast. Stephen, thank you so much for your insights. I'm sure our audience is going to go and look at your video selection and offering. Sounds very it's a very good deal, at least in our opinion. So we'll get back to you on that and have you on the show again. And I'm sure Andrew will be following up with some robotic questions and comments. So thanks a lot. We'll see you soon. Enjoy your stay in Rome. And Andrew, you're always having fun somewhere, so I don't feel sorry for you anymore.
So Steve, just one more time, what's that website where people can go to your course?
Yeah.
How to start up in medtech.com.
Okay. All right, everybody.
If you go on if you go on LinkedIn and look at me, there's a link in my LinkedIn. So Steve Bell on LinkedIn, you'll find me.
Perfect. Enjoy your weekend,
Thanks, Steve.
everybody.
Enjoy.
I'm about to enjoy mine.
Take care.
Thanks,
Enjoy.
guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys.